Hi everyone, I'm Naina and welcome to Sleep On It.
Hi everyone, I'm Ying Ying, and today we're going to talk about circadian rhythm.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like this is a really hot topic lately, especially because so many people wanted to listen about it after our last episode. And I wanted to share a patient story because it really highlights to me, I think, what a lot of us feel out there, which is the stress or anxiety about when to get to bed and what's the right time to go to sleep. So I had a patient for a number of years who had experienced insomnia, and she couldn't get to bed no matter how she tried. She had tried different herbal medications, she had tried a number of sleep aids, some of them were effective, but she also had a lot of side effects that she couldn't tolerate, like waking up feeling really drowsy and just not well, that she just didn't want to be on medications. And she finally came and saw me, and we talked a little bit about circadian rhythm and what that means. And what the circadian rhythm is really just referring to our internal clock, which runs on a 24-hour cycle, and it occurs every single day like a constant cycle or motion that goes through our bodies. And so you can think of the circadian rhythm as one master clock located in the brain that controls a bunch of clocks located throughout the body. And it's in sync when we follow this sort of rhythmicity that occurs on a 24-hour cycle every day. And sleep is one of the things highly regulated by the circadian rhythm. And I was talking to her more, and it sounded like she was trying to go to bed around 10 p.m. and wanted to wake up around 6 or 7 a.m. to get to work. And I asked her why she wants to go to bed at 10, and she said, well, it's because I know I need to wake up early for work, and I have an hour commute, and I have to allot all this time in the morning, and if I get to bed later, I just won't get my full 8 hours that I know I'm supposed to get. And then I asked her, well, what time do you get sleepy? And she said, well, I get sleepy around 7 or 8 p.m., but I fight it because nobody goes to sleep at 7 or 8 p.m. And my husband likes to watch TV or do things which I want to be a part of and not miss out on that important quality time after we both had a long day of work. And so she would pretty much stop herself from going to sleep by doing a lot of different things, like keeping her mind active, watching a lot of TV before bed. And by the time she got to bed at 10, she was no longer as sleepy as she was when she was at 7 or 8, when she was really fighting her sleep. Because we know that light definitely suppresses melatonin, which melatonin is normally made by our bodies every night, and it's triggered by the dark in most people. So when it gets dark outside, the more melatonin we produce. And lights pretty much stop that production or really lower that amount of melatonin. So it pretty much pushes our bedtime a little bit later than we'd probably like. So that may be one thing. And the other thing is, well, when you're stressed out about going to sleep and you really want to get to bed, it's pretty much the opposite of trying to achieve sleep. So your sleep is basically is a state when you feel the most relaxed. And if you're stressed out, even if it's about nothing other than going to sleep, that certainly can stop you from getting to bed when you'd like to. So I asked her to keep some sleep journals or sleep diaries where she could be more mindful and pay attention to her body about when she gets sleepy. And she did this for a couple of weeks, and it turned out that she consistently felt sleepy around 7 or 8 p.m., but was forcing herself to stay awake in 10 or 11, and that caused more difficulty trying to go to bed. And she would wake up feeling tired, not rested. She was having a hard time staying awake or being alert for work. And this pretty much rolled into a big kind of avalanche effect and was affecting different parts of her life. And so after she came back and saw me a few weeks later, we decided that now that we found this consistent pattern of her being sleepy around 7 or 8 p.m., why don't we really test what's happening inside of her body and figure out when she's having that natural melatonin secretion that occurs in everybody. And based off when that occurs at night, we can try to sync her bedtime accordingly.
That's pretty cool. Does it also affect how she feels when she wakes up then?
Yes. So depending on, you know, when your melatonin rise happens,
Hmm.
is when you start feeling sleepy. And when you go to sleep at this natural time or this natural rhythm, it allows you to get the most consolidated full stages of sleep based on, because you're following that sort of internal cycle. And that's why you're going to wake up feeling more refreshed and energetic than sleeping off times, which is not going to allow you to get that full consolidated stages of sleep that's going to make you feel more restful in the morning.
I feel her right now because I was confessing to Nana earlier that I didn't sleep during my normal circadian rhythm. So I definitely feel like my mind's in a fog and I really want to, I'm craving a cup of coffee. I mean, we do have a time difference since I'm on the West Coast, Nina's on the East Coast. And so you're right, when you don't sleep at the right time, like don't even confess what hour I slept at last night, but when you do wake up at your normal time, which is my normally I'm trying to get it to be around like 9 a.m., you don't feel the same. You definitely feel like a zombie.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we've all experienced that in different parts of our life. I remember when I was in residency and I was on this um, straight sort of um, routine of doing nights all the time. So doing nights, 6 nights a week, and then having a day off to recover was really tough in trying to regulate my sleep pattern. So I definitely feel for everyone out there that is working nights or working off shift hours that affect their sleep, because it's really hard to maintain a consistent routine, especially when it's not what we're used to, and that can certainly make us feel more tired and not refreshed. But it can also make it harder to sleep on our days off, and so um, it's really mindful just to try to keep a routine as much as you can, as long as things don't get in the way.
That sounds good. Nice. So it kind of stresses the importance of circadian rhythm or cycle in the sense that it just impacts everything in our body. So sleep is, you were saying, like the best way to kind of restart that rhythm or sync that flow in our bodies.
That is absolutely right. So you're right that circadian rhythm doesn't only affect, having a misalignment in our circadian rhythm doesn't only affect our sleep. It definitely has downstream effects too on the rest of our body. And research has shown that when you're not sleeping at your optimal sleep time, or your circadian rhythm is off in other ways, whether it's you have really big fluctuations in when you eat, or when you exercise, that can affect how your circadian rhythm functions as well, because it's really important to keep in mind that everything is really interconnected. And so when any of these things are off, it can do some damage to our body. And research has shown that people, for instance, who do a lot of night shift work, these patients are more vulnerable and they have increased risk for things like weight gain, diabetes, or um, even difficulty with fertility and changes to menstrual cycle as well. So over doing this for a long time, whether we're doing it due to work or whether we're just inflicting it on ourselves unknowingly, it can certainly have long-term effects.
Oh, so cool. So Nina, that with your patient story, how did that end up getting resolved at the end?
Yeah, so we measured her melatonin production naturally, and it turned out that her optimal bedtime was around 7:30 to 8 p.m. And that's when her melatonin rise was happening that promoted sleep. And so all these years she was fighting her sleep, and she was going to bed later than she should have, which created more anxiety and stress, because it's harder to fall asleep when you don't sleep at your optimal sleep timing. So imagine sleep is like buying a ticket for a long train ride, and you want a really good train ride, right? The one that you can enjoy and feel good about. And that's what sleep is like. And say you bought a ticket to get on your sleep train
Yes.
in DC, and it's supposed to go all the way up to Boston. But you decide not to get on DC, and you decide to hop on the train in New York. And but the problem is your train is still going to stop at Boston. It's not going to get extended. So you end up getting a shorter train ride, and you're less satisfied from it. And sleep is like the same idea. When you go to sleep at your natural rhythm, you're going to feel more refreshed with less awakenings, and you're more you're more likely to fall asleep a little bit faster and stay asleep longer too. So we decided it's simply just to change her sleep timing and allow her to go to bed a little bit early, because it worked with her waking up early and getting all the stuff that she needed to get done to get to work. And by changing her sleep time that was more optimal for her own rhythm, I saw her back and she felt a lot more refreshed, more energetic, and just less stressed out about her sleep. So it can really be as simple as that, rather than took years of thinking she had insomnia, but she was just really just sleeping out of sync with her cycle.